Welcome back to your Bucks latest on FanArc. I'm Sam Shapiro. If you haven't checked out Underdog Fantasy, well, you can start right now by using this QR code right up here. Download the app today and use promo code BasketballFan to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. I know it's definitely made the experience following the NBA for me a little bit more enjoyable so far this year. I've found myself at the edge of my couch for a number of games where I'm like, wait a minute, I don't even care about either of these two teams. So definitely worth checking out what they have to offer over there on the app, making some of those picks. Again, definitely, whether you're an average fan or a super fan, definitely makes the game more exciting to watch. So thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring today's video. Anyway, this Friday, we're going to talk about some things Giannis said following Wednesday night's loss against the Oklahoma City Thunder, in addition to potential moves that Milwaukee could maybe look into in hopes of, maybe bolstering the 18-25 record we've seen so far from them this season. Antetokounmpo saying after Wednesday night's loss against the Thunder regarding his teammates, quote, "We're not playing hard. We're not playing to win. We're not playing together. Our chemistry isn't there. Guys are being selfish. We just don't get it. And we don't have enough time." Well, considering you're more than halfway through the regular season, yeah, you definitely don't have as much time as you'd like on your hands at this point. But I think it's very interesting for Antetokounmpo to be talking about this right now, considering all of the whirlwind that is blowing around him, and at least that mainstream media is creating, in terms of, although Antetokounmpo has said, "I'll never request a trade. It's not in my nature. I'm sticking with Milwaukee for now." Those comments don't necessarily suggest that energy. So the fact that I feel like mainstream media is blowing a little bit out of proportion that Giannis is still going to leave, Giannis is still going to leave, those comments kind of support those claims, I would say, a little bit more than what he was saying prior. Now, obviously, some of the things he's done aside from saying that also kind of suggest totally suggest that he wants out of Milwaukee, at least at this point in time right now. But he said he's not going to request a trade personally. And I don't think Milwaukee is going to go out of their way to look for a trade package that could be better than having a talent like him on the roster. So I agree that the team is definitely not playing hard. They didn't look like they were playing hard really at all against the Thunder. Got blown out by 20 points. So I see, a potential him trying to take the "let me hold my teammates accountable" angle in this scenario, but that's, I think, a little bit of a tough sell. I mean, yeah, obviously he's the leader of this team, and when your team's not playing well, you got to hold your teammates accountable. But I think with, the tone of him not wanting to play in Milwaukee right now, even though that's not what he said, I think it's definitely creating a lot of tension throughout the organization, throughout the team, and it's just making everything a heck of a lot harder. So what can Milwaukee do to make this situation a little bit better? Well, I think a lot of fans would agree with me when I say that maybe a head coaching change could potentially be something to look into. I think a lot of people would say that that would definitely be something Milwaukee should maybe consider. Would they benefit by getting rid of Doc Rivers? And when you look at Doc's track record, at least in the 3 seasons he's been involved with Milwaukee so far this year, I mean, he's coming off a 48-34 season last year where, yeah, finished over 500, went to the playoffs, ultimately got beaten by Indiana. Not looking as great this season, unfortunately, sitting at 18-25, as I had mentioned in this episode. But a lot of fans, I feel like, are really upset with the lack of in-game substitutions he makes. In fact, somebody sent me a Reddit post this morning saying that it was basically, it almost looked like a Declaration of Independence type of post, basically declaring that Doc Rivers, in all caps, must be fired. I mean, you got fans on NBA Reddit absolutely dogging your head coach at that point. Your team's under 500. Your superstar player is walking around like he doesn't want to play there anymore. the team's going on I wouldn't say the most catastrophic spiral, but some sort of spiral where they're not playing the type of basketball we've seen them play in recent seasons, then I don't know. Especially more because I personally think Doc Rivers is a meme coach. The fact that you only got one ring to your name and you've coached teams like Lob City, Philadelphia 76ers when they were a little bit more consistently healthy, and the Boston Celtics, which, mind you, only won one ring, at least with him, in the drive, him leading the way. I mean, I personally don't love him as a coach. So I understand why a lot of Bucks fans would like to see him out of the equation right now, considering this Milwaukee team not looking too hot. And when you look at his overall record coaching in Milwaukee, 83-78, screaming Kirk Cousins energy to me, screaming mediocrity across the board. 500 in a ton of games you've played throughout the 3 seasons you've been involved with Milwaukee. So I don't think it'd be the worst idea in the world. I would definitely say that, the only full season he's coached, at least having an over 500 record, making the playoffs, definitely gives you the right to coach out the rest of this regular season. But considering how bad things look right now and Giannis not really seeming happy, I don't know if it would make him happier to see Doc Rivers go, but I think it would make a lot of other Bucks fans to see him not at the helm of coaching the team at this point in time. But before I dive into some trades that I think Milwaukee could maybe or should possibly consider before the February 5th trade deadline, just want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video over at Underdog Fantasy. Fast breaks, buzzer beaters, and block parties are back, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all the action. Now, playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like points, rebounds, steals, and more. Get your picks right, and you can win up to 5,000 times your cash. This week on Underdog, I'm looking at the Houston Rockets taking on the Detroit Pistons and selecting Kevin Durant for higher than 25.5 points in tonight's game and Cade Cunningham for higher than 26.5 points in this game. Download the app today and use promo code BasketballFan to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. Again, that's promo code BasketballFan, and it's on Underdog. Make picks, win money.
Must be 18 plus. 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska. 19 plus in Colorado for some games. 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia. And present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/play and get terms DFSTML for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 helpline at 1-878 or text HOMI 467-369.
Well, Giannis Antetokounmpo is at the center of a ton of trade rumors still. So is Karl Anthony Towns for the New York Knicks, as they've taken a bit of a downward spiral over their last couple of games as well. Actually, arguably worse than what Milwaukee has been showing throughout the entirety of their season. However, if you're looking at a trade straight up Anthony Towns for Giannis, I think that's crazy and Milwaukee should not do that. But I think if you're looking at a package deal you could get from New York in exchange for Giannis, that might be worth Milwaukee's time. Now, out of the 3 teams that I think have the most compelling case to offer assets that could benefit Milwaukee, I think obviously the Knicks are in the mix just because Giannis had voiced he wanted to play there at one point over the summer. Miami, I think, is a very good option. I think the Spurs also have a ton of draft capital to offer in exchange for Giannis if you're going full-blown rebuild mode. But I think if you're the Knicks, you've definitely got some pieces that can keep your team in the win column, but also not involve tearing down so much out of the equation for Milwaukee, at least at this point in time. I think if you could swindle some sort of package with Antetokounmpo and either OG Anunoby or Mikal Bridges, one of the two, because I think New York would never do a deal where they trade all 3 players in exchange for Giannis. If you're Milwaukee and you could pull that off, that'd be great, because I think it would really bolster the overall strength of your lineup. But I think that's a bit of a fantasy land kind of take in some regards, just because Bridges and Anunoby both arguably fringe all-star type players. Anthony Towns, the best shooting big in the league, in my opinion. Also, fringe superstar, definite, strong all-star player. Lacks the defensive ability I feel like that Antetokounmpo brings to the table. But if you're getting Antetokounmpo, or if you're getting, Anthony Towns and Anunoby in exchange for just Giannis, I mean, you can fluctuate an Anunoby in between your backcourt and your front court depending on where you need the size on a given night. And then you still have Miles Turner to pair up with Anthony Towns in that front court. So definitely think could bolster a successful scenario for Milwaukee where they're getting a number of assets as well. And then if that's not enough for Milwaukee, heck, you could maybe try to get a Deuce McBride involved in some sort of deal in there as well. And then if you're Milwaukee, maybe throwing in addition to that, some guy deeper in the rotation. But if you're looking at a deal where you can get Anunoby and Karl Anthony Towns, your starting lineup is Ryan Rollins, Anunoby at the 2, Kuzma at the 3, and then Turner probably at the 4 and Cat at the 5. So that's a pretty strong starting 5 if you ask me. Is it better than having Giannis right now? I would honestly like to hear some of your comments in terms of if that would be worth Milwaukee's bang for their buck in terms of acquiring some sort of package deal, because getting a borderline superstar and at least one fringe all-star, and then maybe potentially in addition to that, a guy deeper in the Knicks rotation in exchange for Giannis, and then maybe like a Gary Harris or a Gary Trent Jr. type of player could also be worth, could be worth Milwaukee's, value and time for giving up, their franchise player in that regard. Another trade that I think Milwaukee could also look into that wouldn't involve even shipping off the Greek Freak would involve Kyle Kuzma, sending him to Phoenix in exchange for Dillon Brooks. Now, I think you'd probably have to add 2030 first round pick in addition to Kuzma to send to Phoenix in exchange for Brooks, just because Dillon's been scoring a little bit more efficiently, I would say, than Kuzma this year. Now, Kuzma's shooting overall from the field better, 49% compared to Brooks, 44%. But Brooks is scoring 20 points a game. He's having a career year right now in Phoenix. And I think because of that would make the deal for the Suns a little bit more enticing to throw a draft asset in there as well, considering they don't have much to work with in general. So I think that that would definitely be a deal that, again, in a scenario where, you're looking at if Anunoby was going to be on the roster, you're getting a guy in Brooks that could fluctuate in between your backcourt and your front court, being a 6'7" guard / forward. So if you could, afford to maybe have him at that 3 spot now that you're not going to have Kuzma in the mix, but then you also want to have him at the 2 and then have guys like Gary Harris, AJ Green come off the bench to go along with Gary Harris. And then you're starting, a Gary Trent Jr. type of player. You still got Giannis and Turner in that front court also to hold it down. So I'm not saying Dillon Brooks would completely change the tides of what this team is doing right now, but I definitely think that's a player that could move them from the under 500 record they're looking at right now to at least a 500, a record of 500 that could potentially make a run in the playoffs in a not as strong Eastern Conference in comparison to the West. That's going to do it for this episode of your Bucks latest on FanArc. Don't forget to drop a like on this video, and if you haven't already, click that subscribe button. We've got great daily content you don't want to miss all throughout the week right here. Thanks again so much for joining us. I'm Sam Shapiro. Have a great Friday.